Hello, my name is Jubal, and you know, I think in the past couple of days I was a little bit sad, I suppose I could say, because it really hit personal, you know what I mean? So, yeah, it just hit me personally. I want to say I was so sad that I begged my parents, not to do this and that, even though I'm 19 years old. I'm just a little sad about it. But basically, what's happening, and it's just an update of what's going on. What's going on is that I am moving out, I am moving out to, I think, like a rural area. I won't say the city's name. I'm moving out to a rural area, and I'm happy for myself, because when I was a kid, I had a dream of having my own room. You know what I mean? My own room. I'm talking about the kids who grew up like in apartments, who had to share one room. Or if you get lucky, you have an apartment, you have your own room, your parents have your own room, and you have siblings / other family members, etc., etc. I'm talking about the kids who shared rooms when you in the apartments. I was one of those kids. When you have 2 bedrooms and it's so enclosed space that sometimes, as a kid, I really wish I had my own rooms, because when I was at school, I heard my other classmates / friends just, talking about, oh, I want a room, I have my own room, I sleep in my own room, just simple words like that. They never talk about like, oh, my room, and I have my bunch of wallpapers, this and that. And sometimes when I hear that, it made me jealous a little bit. Not too much jealous, where like, oh, let's swap places. Me and you go to my bedroom, I go to your bedroom, in different locations. Until years later, my parents have what's it called? Had told me, because they told me behind the curtains, nothing inappropriate or anything, but they told me behind the curtains, saying, hey, that we're gonna move. They told me, I'm like, really? And they're like, yes. And like, oh. I'm like, I said out. I wasn't expecting this day that was coming. I wasn't expecting it. And I was like, hell yeah. Well, actually, my real answer was I didn't expect it was coming, but I know it's time to move to another town / city to start my own life. But the only thing that made me sad about it the most was of my friends, mostly, because I have a friend that I still talk to this day, because we grew up together, for a year. I'm talking about since we were like babies, and 5 to 6 years old, type right there. And it made me sad because, I broke the news when I was at the house over there. And he was sad too, like, oh man, that means I have to drive over there, this and that. I'm like, yeah, you have to drive. And to drive to come see me if you want to. And we started joking about it. But the person I feel bad the most, was my sister. Mind you, my sister is around 8 and 9 years old. And I know it's gonna affect her the most because, I would hear stories online, about how people, or movies actually, mostly a YouTube video on social media, about how their parents always move to states, different states, cities to cities, that when they go to a new school, they're prone to get bullied. You know what I mean? Because, when you come to the school, you always be treated as an outsider. You'll be treated as an outsider. And not only that, it will be, will start bullying you because, you're not from around this area, or I'm from the area. You know what I mean? So yeah, I know there's some people who experienced it, who go to a new school and you get treated terribly, because you're not from around there. But if you get lucky, you might enjoy it. You create a new experience, or you get new friends right away. So yeah, I feel a little bit sad, but also happy that I'm moving, to start my own life as a young adult. To be honest, even though I'm 19 years old and I'm a young adult, young adult feels a little bit different. Now you're expected to have a job, also go to school, or you're not going to school, you're just working in the workforce. And learn how to drive, And to be honest with me, I'll be straight honest, I never learned how to drive, and it's my fault. And the reason is because from K through 12 years of my life, my parents were the only ones who picked me up and dropped me off, when I turned 19, they were still dropping me off. So, so I decided after I graduated, I said, you know what, I'm going to start learning how to drive. They always say it's a life skill. And I'm like, oh, whatever, And the second thing is, I didn't get a job very early. Like at age, 18, I'll say that. Mostly because, it never made sense to me about People will get a job at age 16 and they're prone to get more manipulated because you're still going to middle school slash you're going to high school, and you're a minor technically, so I never understood that, so I waited until I became a young adult, which is 19, so sorry. No, I got sick a little bit. But anyway, and I understood people getting a job at age 16, and I would hear my classmates, talking about, oh my God, my boss is so horrible, and they don't understand. And so now I'm like, yeah, fuck that, now in my head, I'm like, yeah, fuck that, and I'll just wait until age 19, so I don't have to go deal with that and pulling on my hair while I'm balancing school, So now that I'm 19, I have to get a job, because one motivation I think everybody has is money, and also create network, I believe. Yeah, to create network. So yeah, this is my actually first life update about what's going on and why I'm not a little bit consistent about it, about making some YouTube videos, but here's that. And also I'll give you another update in the next video, which probably in next week or in a couple of days. So this is Jubal. See ya.